Coming to you live from the Mistopheles Studios, it's Dark Fringe Radio.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
The disease, and I'm the cure. That is power.
Hey guys, it's Will Martinez here with Dark Fringe Radio. Thanks for joining us on another adventure and episode, of course, of Dark Fringe Radio. Couldn't do this, of course, without my co-host, Jake Losi. How are you, brother? What's up?
Good, Dr. Jones. Good. It's an adventure.
Remember that fucking movie? And he had the blocks tied to his feet. He was driving the fucking car.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So that YouTube does like these free movies every month, and that's actually one of the movies.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, I was actually watching it just the other night. It's kind of funny.
You know what the fucked up thing about that movie is that I didn't realize it till fucking years later, is that part 2 is a prequel to part 1.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that. I was like,
yeah.
I always thought that was a sequel, and it really wasn't.
Them in chronological order.
Yeah.
You actually go 2, 1,
3, right, 4, right. Yeah. Well, that's shit that we learn as we get older. But fuck, I learned that probably like 10 years after the fact. I was like, really? I was like, fuck. Okay, that makes more sense. But okay.
That was explained to me when I was a child. But it was explained to me. I didn't pick it up.
Explained to you. Hey, listen, I didn't have that.
My Uncle Jimmy was deep in that kind of life, and
see, I didn't have the Uncle Jimmy. Like
what can I say? I've lived a blessed life.
You were blessed life. Yeah. Well, listen, this is another, of course, edition of Dark Fringe Radio, episode 94, Jay. And tonight we're going to be interviewing Miss Tammie Chavez, or Mab Chavez, with Hollyweird Paranormal. You can check her out at Hollyweird Paranormal on Instagram. And I tell you what, her Instagram stories are the best. So make sure you go ahead and check that out. We're going to be talking about a lot of the places that she's investigated, her history, background, her latest investigation at the Los Angeles Police Museum. We talk about a lot of that stuff. So it's a really good conversation with her. And I hope you guys enjoyed. But of course, I want to remind everybody how you can listen to the podcast. Very simply done. Go to our website, darkfringeradio.com. Go right straight there, and you can listen to the latest episode of Dark Fringe Radio right there at the bottom. You can scroll there, and you can see the YouTube actual stream of the latest episode. And of course, you can hear the latest episode in all your streaming sites, which is iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, all those places. Of course, you can check out Dark Fringe Radio. And when you go there, please subscribe, give us a fucking rating, please. Help us out, please.
Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Do us a good one, please.
Look at these punums here. Look at these punums.
How can you say no to this, right? But make sure you go ahead and do that. Exactly. And of course,
so
on
many
YouTube,
people say no.
Make sure you check out our YouTube, Dark Fringe Radio on YouTube. Subscribe, and make sure you go ahead and leave some comments there as well. It really helps us out. But yes, we could also follow our social media on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Dark Fringe Radio. So make sure you go ahead and do that as well, and check out all our daily stuff, which I take care of, and try to keep that going on. Well, you comment and you get involved, so that's good.
Yeah. No, I'm flaming content.
You engage, which is good. You know what I mean?
I'm our top fan, apparently.
Yeah, but that's the good thing. You engage, and a lot of we have a lot of listeners that engage on like a more frequent basis, which is cool.
Yeah.
Because
there's really good conversations out there.
Exactly, and we get to know some of the people that we that listen to our show on a kind of more personal basis, which is really cool. And we appreciate all you guys that are like diehard listeners of Dark Fringe Radio. But tonight again, we're gonna have the interview with Miss Tammie M Chavez. But before we get into that, Jay, I wanted to get right into the mother load tonight, and of course, that is What the F Florida man? And Jay, what do you have?
No foreplay. No foreplay.
No foreplay. We're going right for the
Doesn't
giddy.
buy me dinner. Doesn't ask me how's my mom. No, just right into it.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Hey,
Mr. Man.
that's how we do it, bro.
Mr. has too much time. Okay, fine.
I got things to do.
Time is money, bitch.
Time is money. I ain't got time to be fucking around.
So, actually,
So what do you have for this week for what the F Florida man,
this
Jay?
conversation kind of bleeds into this.
Okay.
Florida couple try to get married
Oh.
at someone else's mansion.
Oh, wow.
This just happened on April 23rd.
Okay.
An ambitious Florida, Oh, they're ambitious doing channel. I suddenly turned into a Biabi's mom.
What are you talking about, Jay? You're talking
I
about a
would say
different language.
ambitious, and then I said ambitious, and then the whole thing.
What the
So, Florida couple attempted to hold their 2-day wedding celebration at a mansion they didn't have permission to use.
Okay.
But their intended nuptials ended before they could begin, as the owner of the house called the police and turned them away at the gate.
Yeah. Yeah. So they intended to get married in a place they had no permission at all whatsoever to get married
Yeah.
in.
They just showed up.
Wow.
Hey, we're gonna have our wedding here. Is that cool? What do
They
you
didn't
mean?
say
No.
that if that's cool. They
What
just
do you
like,
mean you're calling the cops?
people are ballsy, no?
We have meth.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. People are
Yeah.
ballsy.
people are ballsy.
So what was like the end result of this whole thing? Like what happened? Did anybody get like fucking put in jail or
So they showed up when they showed up the morning of.
yeah.
This house has been on the market, so they believe the house wasn't lived in.
Got you.
Woman called the cops, but by that point, everybody had left. So
They got really what they wanted, really, at the end, no?
no, they didn't get married. They didn't even make it on the property.
Oh, well, all that for nothing then. Oh, fuck. Well, hey.
Literally, they showed up at the gate and said, "Hi, we thought it was empty. Can we have our wedding here?" No.
No,
Why not?
because this property is for sale.
And apparently, the bride did say that she felt it was God's will that they have their wedding in their yard. But
Well, it was also God's will.
This woman told her to go stuff it.
Yeah, well, it was also God's will that it didn't happen in that person's yard. So maybe that's a sign of things to come in your marriage. Well, listen, that's a hell of a story, Jay. Where did this happen in Florida? Any
No clue.
Where? No clue. Okay, I was
no clue. Florida.
I was like, where could I fucking peg this story at? But that could.
I believe it was actually. I want to say it was in Jupiter or West Palm Beach area. I believe. Don't quote me on that. It was from the Sun Sentinel, and that's a fairly local paper for us. So
yeah. Okay.
It happened probably somewhere along the Treasure Coast, I assume.
Gotcha. Well, listen, Jay, hell of a story again for what the F Florida woman, I guess, on this occasion.
Florida families. Family occasion. Mom and dad and brother and sister getting married.
What a fucking story. But, listen, it's not something that, again, surprises
Won't happen anywhere else, friends.
Only in this fucking state of Florida.
Only here.
Exactly. Well, listen, Jay, I appreciate it. Thanks so much. Of course, we're going to get into our interview here now in a second with Miss Tammie M Chavez with Hollyweird Paranormal. Of course, you can check her out at Hollyweird Paranormal on Instagram and check out all her Instagram stories. Make sure you share and like and follow all her stuff there. And she'd really appreciate that. So we'll be getting into our interview here with her here in a second. Please don't go anywhere.
This is Vincent Lords with Paranosis, and you're listening to Dark Fringe Radio.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Dark Fringe Radio. And my guest tonight is Miss Tammie Chavez from Hollyweird Paranormal. Thank you for joining us tonight on Dark Fringe Radio. Tammie, thank you so much. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to talk about Los Spookies with you.
It's spookies, I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've been following you for a while now. And everybody please check her out. Hollyweird Paranormal on Instagram. Your stories are the best, by the way. When I see your stories pop up, I just like, all right, I can't even like, I have to prepare myself mentally. Like, because if I'm at work and I start scrolling through my stories, like, okay, yeah, I can't watch a story right here because I'm gonna start cracking up laughing too loud. And my other coworkers gonna act like I'm crazy or something. But yeah, check out her page there, Hollyweird Paranormal on Instagram. You'll definitely love everything that you do. And
sorry.
oh no, it's great. And Tammie, how you doing? How's everything?
I am pretty warm right now. It is hotter than Hades in California right now. I am like, are we in spring? What is there? So summer? It is it goes from warm to crispy all of a sudden in California. But yes, I'm trying to stay cool.
That's awesome. And listen, I mean, we have so much to talk about. I mean, you've been doing paranormal investigating for quite some time now. You also have your podcast. Could you mention your podcast as well?
Sure. I am the co-host and creator of Hollyweird Paranormal podcast, and it's been up and running for almost 4 years now. I have a co-host. Awesome. His name is Bryce Mitchell-Williams. He's a little more of the skeptic, which is great to have in a team, or in a duo when you're talking about the paranormal. And we talk about Hollywood true crime and its paranormal association or anything weird and paranormal, connected in the city. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of tales and there's a lot of legends and there's a lot of weird in California.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely in Hollywood. Yeah. You're surrounded by a lot of legend, lore, and just a plethora of just just different, things that happen in history in that area alone. Let me ask you this, Tammie, what got you started in the paranormal? Let me ask you that because we've never had you on the podcast here. A lot of people may not know you on my podcast. I've interviewed you on another podcast, but on here, if you could tell my my listeners, where did this whole fascination of the paranormal come from? What got you started?
Growing up in New Orleans. I am originally from a very haunted city, New Orleans. And growing up, I never had a personal experience. I just knew I was growing up in a very mysterious and unique, and yes, I will use the word spooky city. You felt it, you could feel it, you just knew. And growing up, I was always surrounded and always tuned into legends and ghost stories of my hometown. And I grew up with the legends of the Rougarou, which was the swamp werewolf. I grew up with ghost stories that were connected to the homes in St. Charles and off of St. Charles Avenue. And so much more in the French Quarter. So yeah, that's pretty much where I got my big interest from, was just growing up in that city. And then of course, as you're growing up and, you're getting, adjusted to more great literature, of course, scary stories to tell in the dark is another one that really amplified my interest. And then it just catapulted from there.
It's amazing, that book, how influential that book was. A lot of people don't talk about, we talk about it in, joking fashion, us paranormal investigators and people who are into this stuff. We talk about it, kind of joke about it, but in reality, it really did influence a lot of people from that era to what they are now. It's amazing, isn't it?
100%. And not to mention the illustrations. They were, I think it's by Alan Swartz. I could be wrong, but
you're right.
Those illustrations really hit home. You're like, whoa, that really, when you turn the page, you're like, I'm a little scared. Oh my God. The woman is having spiders coming out of her damn cheek,
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So, but that really, it amplified it for all of us. We were just so glued to that book. And
it was an amazing book, and it definitely influenced a lot of people in the paranormal field, I think, today.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about New Orleans, of course. You just talked about something, how you could feel the energy there. And I want to tell you a really quick story about my first encounter in New Orleans. The first time I actually went there was about 3 years ago. And I was super excited to go because I've never been there, and I knew all this knowledge, and I just wanted to be there, see it for myself. I visited the Museum of Death that they have there as well. That was a spooky place. You felt weird after you left there.
Oh yeah, we have one here in Hollywood, and let me tell you, you want to curl up in a fetal position after leaving that place for sure.
Yeah. You probably want to listen to like happy music or something because you're in a completely different space mentally. But the one thing that I just want to mention when I was there was that the feeling of the electricity in the city, it felt like there was electricity running through the ground. To me, that's how I felt. And even more so at night when the city started kind of turning up more and more at night. it was just a feeling of this electricity I've never felt before in any other place. I mean, I've been to a lot of places in the United States. I'm one of those traveling salespeople, for many years. And I've been to a lot of cities, and nothing compares to New Orleans. Nothing.
Absolutely, 100%. And people even feel that when they go to Savannah. And Savannah, you're literally walking over dead people. That's another old city too that has a lot of crazy stories, true stories.
Oh, yeah.
And like New Orleans, that's so amazing that you even said that you feel that energy and electricity. You feel it there. It's very palpable. And especially after Hurricane Katrina, I'll never forget it when I had a couple of friends tell me, I think it was like almost 8 months after the hurricane, and they were visiting, they told me, Tammie, after we left, we felt this heaviness. It was such this weight and this dark heaviness that you just kind of walked away with from New Orleans. And I would constantly hear that from other people who visited too. So it's definitely palpable, whatever's there.
Yeah, it's definitely, and it's very powerful. So, Tammie, let's talk about some of your most recent investigations. And I'm actually really excited about talking about this because you recently investigated the LA, was it Police Museum? Is that correct?
The LAPD Police Museum. Oh my God. Wow.
Tell me about this place, Tammie, please.
Wow. I was connected to this place through our friends, our podcast friends, LA Not So Confidential, Dr. Scott and Dr. Shiloh. Dr. Shiloh used to be a police officer, and she would always tell me about this museum in Highland Park. She's like, Tammie, you need to go. It is 100% haunted. And I'm like, why? Right. Well, first off, the building is really old. It was built in the 1920s. It was a functioning police department, and then it was turned into a museum. And the museum houses one of the most famous, all the famous cases that are based out of California, everything from the Black Dahlia to the chicken coop murders to Marilyn Monroe, the SLA shootout, the North Hollywood shootout, along with the Charles Manson and the family murders. So I contacted them and I was like, hey, can we just interview you? And they were super sweet, and they invited me and Bryce, and we know how it goes with Bryce. He was a little scared. He's just not only the skeptic, but the scaredy cat. And I was like, okay, well, it will be, we're in a pandemic, we'll keep it very sterile, very small. And
it's funny that you say that because, and I kind of give him credit for being scared because that's real. That's stuff that really happened, and it's in there in history. It's encased in there, and it's got to be just a soup of just, residual energy.
It really is. And at first, I walking in didn't know that they had a lot of the stuff in the exhibits. I really didn't know until I walked in with two of my friends, Matt Lytle and Chris Califf from the show Ghost Loop. And we met the assistants, we met the chair. They gave us an entire tour of everything. We were there with another paranormal group who first investigated the museum, Dark Horse Paranormal. And Bob, the chairman, took us everywhere. And not only did he take us everywhere, he took us into places that I didn't know existed in the museum. He took us into a room that had the 66 plus boxes of the Charles Manson murder cases from La Bianca to even Sharon Tate. And then he comes in with this old box in front of me, and he's like, you want to know what's in this box? And I'm like, oh my God, what's in the box? What is in the box?
Oh, just like Seven.
It's like the movie Seven. And I look and it says Monroe. And I'm like, no. And he's like, this is the Marilyn Monroe case box. This is from her investigation. And I said, stop it. He said, yeah, what's it? I can't open the box. We, really can't show you what's in here. We're not allowed to. We can only show you the boxes, but it's like there's a lot of things that belong to the investigation, and a lot of her personal belongings are inside this box. I was just thinking, can I at least hold the box at least?
Yeah.
And it was just, you walked into that room and you just felt like, you felt so many emotions. But
sure.
That whole entire place is so active, and it's just not the place itself. It's like also what it embodies. So my investigation kind of took a turn. It's not just what's in the building, it's also what's inside these exhibits, which were these case boxes, these items and weapons that belong to Charles Manson, that belong to, famous cases and murder cases, like the chicken coop murders. I'm like, oh my God, this is insane. And then I walk into a dark room and I didn't even know what room it was. I mean, I was being led from one room to the next, and they would turn on the light and tell me, oh, this is the SLA shootout room. Oh, this is, our, vintage police officer uniform room. And then I go into this other room, and man, right when I walked in, I could feel my heart racing. Like it was like this palpitation. And I felt like this anxiety. And I'm like, what the hell? This is really different. And then one of the assistants turns on the lights, and I'm greeted by two masked figures holding guns. They're mannequins, and it scared the crap out of me. And they're like, oh, and this is our North Hollywood shootout. I'm like, I think I got the gist of that. So they have this exhibit that is dedicated to the 1997 North Hollywood shootout that occurred here in North Hollywood, in my home city right here, where I currently live, literally 5 minutes away from my apartment, where these two masked, armed, and armored criminals, Larry Smith Jr. and Emil Serrano, walked into a Bank of America, and they attempted to rob it. But let's just say that it was one of the most intense and insane shootouts between LAPD and these two men who were
ever. Yeah.
Ever. It changed the way police, approach robberies.
Yeah.
And these two men, let's just say they didn't make it, of course, but it was a day where LAPD felt like they were going to be outgunned because these men carried military grade weapons. This exhibit had everything.
I'm sure the level of electricity when you saw that rose right through your spine. I mean,
it really did.
Yeah, because the level of intensity of what that was. I mean, if for those that don't know, because it happened some time ago, I'm sure it's somewhere on YouTube. You can look it up, and it's the most intense thing that you'll ever see, because and not only that, because it lasted for so long as well. And you're just like, okay, is this ever going to end? You're like, what's going on?
Like you felt like you were watching a movie. Like you could see the news footage on, if you really want to go down a rabbit hole, one of the robbers shoots himself, and the news cameras and channels captured the whole entire ordeal. It's really intense. And this museum and the exhibit has everything that the actual clothing and weapons that they carried and wore that day. So you already know that room is just insane to be good with.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. So were you able or allowed to do any type of investigating in there? I mean, were you able to do like EVP work? Were you?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We did EVP sessions. We did voice box sessions. I learned in every investigation that there's certain ways that you can make communication, certain ways to conduct certain sessions.
Right.
And there are times where a spirit's going to want to communicate with how they feel they're going to want to communicate. So we collected a lot of great EVPs. EVP sessions work really great in the museum. We had a REM pod, barely went off. We had other detectors that, if you, like my EDI, for example, if you just tap on it, or the energy is supposed to tap on it, it's supposed to show like these lights and everything. Nothing. But when it came to EVPs and other things, they were all for it. Like even the first investigation that was there, the television and the next exhibit all of a sudden turned on. We heard footsteps. We heard doors slamming. I mean, they were getting warmed up within time. And of course, going back and researching and listening to the audio, it was just amazing the amount of EVPs that I got. And
it's so weird how some places are like that, right? How nothing else goes off, but it's just EVPs, nothing but EVPs.
It's crazy. And then the second time, I went back, and then Bob, the chairman, comes in with a box, a briefcase of personal items that belonged to one of the robbers, Emil, like his birth certificate and passport. And he was like, you could use this in the investigation, because we went back for the 24th anniversary. And that one is where we did the Estes Method. And I've never done that. And that one was one of the best sessions I've ever done, because I've never performed the Estes Method.
I think that's the method where you cover your eyes while you do almost like an EVP session, but your eyes closed, kind of deprivate your senses a little, in a way, almost.
Yeah,
is that correct?
sensory deprivation. Yeah. So the Estes Method was created, I believe, in 2017 by 3 investigators. and Connor Randall, I think is one of them, from
think you're right.
Estes. Yeah, from Estes Park, Colorado. They're the ones who coordinate the haunted tours in the Stanley. Oops, sorry, there's a plane.
Oh, that's okay.
In the Stanley Hotel in Colorado. And yeah, pretty much what it is that you hook up these noise canceling headphones to an SB7 box, and you blindfold yourself, and you're the only one that could hear what's being received from the SB7. So it removes a lot of group bias, which I absolutely love. And throughout that session, I was coming up with so many, names and statements and sentences. And at one point I felt like there were 3 different types of energies that were trying to like fight for the mic, me being the mic. And at one point I felt like this scared me so much, and you could hear it on part 2 of our podcast. But I felt footsteps that were walking behind me, and it kind of clicked in my head. I'm like, wait, no one was standing behind me. And I could have felt one of the investigators who were in the room with me walk past me, which I didn't. And I was like, whoa, hold up, who's behind me? And I turned, I had to
automatically clicked. It clicked in your head. You're like, oh wait, oh yeah.
And I was like, who is behind me? No one's behind me. I'm like, who was walking? I felt it. Like I felt someone like it was pounding of footsteps. And right when I put back the headphones, the SB7 box said, "It's me." I'm like, oh here we go. Here we go.
Oh hell no. It's me.
Like,
did you get a name by chance or no?
Larry. Yeah, we got Larry. We got the names Gus, and we found out that one of the entities is connected with one of the assistants. So he is the ex-boyfriend of one of the assistants who passed, I think, a year or 2 ago. And he had been all along the heavy presence that was behind her in her office, looking over her. So it was, I mean, if you listen to the episodes, you'll hear everything, but we came up with a lot of amazing things.
Tammie, where can people hear those episodes? Just so I could put that on here now, and that way everybody can hear that.
Oh, sure. You can listen to it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcast fix. Awesome. And it's if you go on Apple Podcasts, type in Hollyweird Paranormal Podcast, or you could go on our website at hollyweirdparanormal.com, and you can tune into our latest episodes and past seasons.
Yeah, great website, by the way. I checked it out because I'm always checking out everybody's website. Yeah, no, because I always try to get ideas and try to, obviously copy and whatever I think is good.
I understand. Look, you have to learn how to do and be everything: a graphic designer, a web designer, a sound engineer, as we were discussing earlier.
Talking about that earlier.
Yeah, it's a lot of work. And then being a paranormal investigator on top of everything.
On top of that. Yeah, people don't understand. People don't understand how difficult it is actually running a podcast. A lot of the things that you have to do, the editing, how much time it takes, the dedication, getting things right, making sure that you want to sound professional, and and if you're a perfectionist, even worse. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm in that category right now, and I'm always crying in the middle of the night. My husband's like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "I can't. It's not saving.
It's not saving as an MP3."
Yeah. Like, what's going on? Or I'm working on the website. I'm like, I think I deleted a page on accident. So.
Yep. Oh yeah. Been there. So Tammie, your time there at the LA Police Museum there. I mean, I'm sure so overwhelming, and I just I encourage everybody to go check that out on your podcast. And what was that I could maybe ask you the one piece of maybe evidence that you saw there that really hit you the most? Was it the LA the shootout? Did that hit you the most?
That hit me the most was the LAPD shootout, because it's just I didn't get like emotional. It was just like you just felt anxious in that room. And I remembered like I did a video of that room, and a friend of mine saw it, and she is a medium. She's like, "Oh my God." She's like, did you feel like your heart was about to burst out of your chest? I'm like, yes, that's what I felt. She's like, I hated that video. I just felt so anxious and so nervous. And I said, yeah. She's like, I also felt like I was on something. And I said, you know what? What was so crazy that I learned is that before Larry and Emil attempted to rob the Bank of America, they were on barbiturates. They were on some heavy drugs to help calm their nerves, to which is why they were just like so like casually, you know, walking down the street shooting at cops, you know, throughout the whole entire 44 minutes that shootout happened. And she's like, that's kind of what I picked up. And it's funny because she just didn't know much about it, which I found so interesting.
What's your take on psychics? I'm curious because everybody in the paranormal field, hit or miss, right?
It's hit or miss for me. Like I find the ones who, I like the ones that look like moms and friends of yours. You know what I mean? They don't look so hard to look like the typical psychic that you see on TV. The ones that I find to be full of BS are the ones that have to remind you that they are a psychic, and they constantly bring up that they're a psychic. Usually the ones that are legit are the ones that don't remind you that they're a psychic. They're the ones that don't like to mention that because they don't want that attention on themselves. I mean, it's hit or miss with me. Like you're like, when I meet them, I'm like, okay, all right, well, we'll see. You know, I'm just gonna
the ones, the ones that I like are the ones like the viejos or the viejitas. You know what I mean? The old little, you know, that've been around and they've seen things for a long time. And like you said, they don't talk about it, but when it needs to come out, it comes out. And then it's just like, man, how the hell do you know all this stuff?
Exactly.
Right? And it's always like that, right?
Trust me, in Hollywood, it's it's interesting to come across a few of them. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's probably different there. Yeah, I'm sure.
It's
right?
Very, very different. And I have some friends who I know it's their job, and I'm like, no, but I think you really are legit. Like, you know what you're talking about. Things that you mentioned to me have actually happened. So I'm kind of I want to say I'm 60-40 with you.
Yeah, I get you. I got you because, you know, I'm the same way. I've seen it be so on point, and then I've seen it go completely left field, and I'm like, okay, you know, it is what it is. I think some people are in tune, some people aren't, and I think you, like what you said, the ones that really are in tune won't tell you that they are and bloat about it, and you know always have to advertise it. But Tammie, you have such an interesting history. You know, we've talked about New Orleans. You know, growing up in a Hispanic household, I'm sure you were probably groomed at a young age to like believe a lot in the supernatural, correct?
Not so much. No, it was
really?
Something that was, it was something that was not discussed too much in our household. It just was never brought up. And especially like growing up with my grandmother in Honduras, there are times where I would go and spend many summers there. And she was just very much a God-fearing woman, but I always knew that there was something unique and special about my grandmother. And it wasn't until like a year or two ago where I realized and found out, no, she had a lot of like sensitive gifts. And, through my sister and I, like, we found like, oh, those are gifts that, we noticed that we've had. My sister is, very much clairsentient, and I'm very much clairvoyant and clairgustance, where I could literally like feel and even like smell and at times taste, which is really interesting. But I noticed that
weird how it affects certain senses, huh?
Oh my God, it's so weird. And the more you investigate, I'm sure you probably noticed this too, or anyone that's listening, the more you investigate and you open yourself up more, the more you start to see and feel those, gifts, or those senses get very, very strong within time. So that is something I noticed. Yeah.
It's funny, like something that my mom used to say all the time, even when I was a kid, que se busca, se encuentre. You know what I mean? The ones who are looking.
Oh my God, I feel like I've heard that.
Yeah. I'm sure probably like it clicks somewhere in your history. Yeah. But yeah, she's always said that. And it's so true. It's like the ones that when you listen, if you're going to look for it, you're going to find something. Now, whether you're prepared to find what you're looking for, that's another thing. You know what I mean?
Exactly. 100%.
Yeah, definitely. Tammie, what's next up for you? What's going on? I know COVID has hit everybody pretty hard. Let me ask you this. This is a question that I have for you because I had the same question for somebody else that I talked to recently. And it was, everybody's different. But, since COVID hit, do you find it's harder to like get into places to do paranormal investigating, or is it easier?
Actually, I've been paranormal investigating a lot more during the pandemic. And at first it was a little hard, but because of the contacts that I've had Here, I had a lot of friends that are like, well, I trust you, and we'll keep it very, very minimal, no teams, use your own equipment, and it'll just be either, us two or just you. And I would say, okay, that's fine, and I realized that I've been actually getting called in a lot to do personal and private investigations at people's personal residence. And
have you done a lot of those?
I've done two of them already. And the first one was, oh my God, they were amazing. They were absolutely amazing. It's that whole thing of like people, I don't know if you read that article or heard about it in the New York Times, but there's this article that people have been experiencing more paranormal activity during the pandemic. And
they're home more.
Yeah, they're home more. So they're noticing a lot of the things that usually happen when they're not home happening.
Exactly.
Or because, of their senses, because they're anxious, they're feeling things, they're feeling a little depressed, and sometimes that could be a magnet for a lot of other energies, I guess you can say. Entities. But absolutely, which was the example. I went to a apartment in Hollywood, and it's a big building, and these were students of mine who I used to teach at school and help with their costumes and stuff, and I want to say it was like 4 of them in this apartment. And I've done a walkthrough in their apartment before, but it seems like things have gotten worse because they brought in new people to live with them. And I find out that those people have special gifts. One comes from a family of psychics. He doesn't like to talk about it. There you go. But he's like, no, I'm very in tune with this stuff. And even one of the girls who was living there longer, she's like, yeah, ever since he moved in here, things have been amplifying. So I'm like, yeah, because they know how sensitive he is. Yeah.
And there's an opening there.
They're like, ooh, party time, party in, room 3, whatever, So the second time I went there, I did a walkthrough, an electronic walkthrough with a friend of mine who's a medium. And we did it via FaceTime, and she was picking up on a lot of things that, they told me, but didn't tell her. So I knew that she was legit. She was like, oh, ooh, I don't like this room. And they're like, yeah, we don't like it either. She's like, yeah, you're feeling this and that. And pretty much to the conclusion, she's like, this is a building that has a lot of energy coming in and out. And she said, we can remove whatever's there right now, but new visitors are going to come in and they're going to stay. And it's this constant rotation, especially in the location. You have the Hollywood, I think it's the Hollywood Legion Hall down the street. You also have the Roosevelt on the opposite side, Frank and Muso's. It's like a trifecta of all these things around them. And then she tells me, she's like, Tammie, I want you to do this. She's like, have you done any research on the land? And I said, no, not yet. She's like, you're going to find something. Trust me. And I said, okay, all right. So a few days later, I am going through newspapers.com. I'm talking to a historian friend of mine. What was on this land? What is going on? And then it turns out that what was on the land where that apartment building was built was the Earl Gates and Crane funeral home. And this funeral home was one of the biggest, fanciest funeral homes. And it used to do the wakes and the funerals for famous Hollywood silent film stars.
Wow.
And it was just, I had to do a double take on the address. I'm like, it's there. Oh my God. It was just so amazing. It was just like, no wonder. And of course, the kids that are in this apartment, they're all actors and actresses. So I'm sure like whatever's there is probably connected to them.
They feel like maybe it's a younger version of themselves or something.
Exactly. And I felt bad because like when you're doing paranormal investigations, especially for a private client, you want to help them, and there's a code of ethics that is involved. And it's like, I feel, and I tell them like, I'm like, guys, I really feel because of what's going on in today's climate, you guys are going through a lot of mental instability. I feel like you guys really need to speak to a therapist, because especially for some of you who are very sensitive, I'm looking at the guy who's a psychic. I'm like, you are, I'm like, you are becoming more and more of a magnet. Like the more negative you feel, the more that's what you guys are going to attract here. And they had a couple of not so great entities in that space. And trust me, they were, you know that electricity you felt in New Orleans, that is the electricity I felt in certain areas of that apartment. You felt it. And you know, it sucks that, you know, I told him there's nothing really I can't do about it. The only thing
that's what my next question was going to be to you. Like, did you tell him, hey, listen, you could either deal with this or you could leave because this is not going to change.
I'm like, this is not going to, and even, you know, my friend who was a medium, she was like, I could come in, I could take out whoever's there for right now. But like I said, you're going to have new visitors come in. It's going to be a weird rotation. Yeah. And she said, what you can do is you just have to ignore it. You can tell it to leave you alone. Just don't give it attention because it's going to give you attention back if you do, you know, if you do so, you know, if you acknowledge it. And of course, after I left, they were experiencing a lot more, but they were doing more positive things. They were going out as a group together. One of them was seeing a therapist. The other girl, I think another person moved back home. She's like, no, I needed to leave. Like, I needed to get out of the city, and things started to calm down a lot more in the apartment. So that was something
just alone, what that alone will do for, you know, the energy in a place like that. Huh?
Exactly. And I was like, see, you know, things are going to happen, right? They're like, yeah, sometimes you do feel like you're not alone in a certain room, but like you said, we ignore it and we don't acknowledge it, and it leaves us alone. So I was like, okay, good. So yeah.
Imagine opening like your bedroom door, like in your apartment, and all of a sudden you see like a funeral home.
Oh my God. Well, it was really weird because the medium picked up, they would see this tall black figure in the kitchen. And the medium told them, she's like, he is connected to the land. And she was like, it makes sense. I think he was one of the morticians or someone there, but he was connected to whatever was there. So, it was such an interesting investigation, but it was such an amazing find.
Wow, I can imagine. I mean, I've not done one of those yet. I'm really looking forward to doing one of those. I just don't know what to expect because obviously it's a lot different. But yeah, I can only imagine. And then, you know, trying to help the people that are there, which is the main goal of the thing. And having, like you said, the certain amount of ethics when you go into that, you have to go into that to be respectful, because obviously those people are the ones that are living there. And they're the ones that are dealing with that. And I'm sure so many different, you know, things that you have to worry about everybody's, you know, attitude towards it. You know, so one person doesn't believe, the other person does. And, you know, that creates a whole dynamic as well.
Absolutely.
You know, and I've heard also from other investigators, like where you find one person is so attached to the property where they don't even want to go. Like they find themselves that they want to stay there, even though everybody else is like being tortured, you know, literally, you know, by these, you know, energies or entities or whatever you want to call them, you know, that they're so attached to the place, they don't want to leave. So, you know, you get those different levels of things. And I'm just sure it's just very emotional when you go into something like that.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, they were kind of getting a little emotional too, because you could tell, like, you know, their lives were completely changed. And I felt for them because there were students that, you know, were attending my job, my school. All of them couldn't graduate. They couldn't finish their finals. They couldn't say give an official goodbye to their friends, you know, and to know like they're not going to be able to be a part of this industry for a very long time. It's going to be very hard. So yeah, it's very tough.
Listen, Tammie, what's next on the horizon for you?
I'm trying to organize another paranormal investigation at another facility, and it's going to be the March Time Aviation Museum here in Los Angeles. Yeah, so Dark Horse Paranormal, who met up with us at the LAPD Museum, they kind of gave me a contact at that museum, and they're like, if you want something really active, that's a really active place. So I'm like, I'm game for it. So let's get started.
You have so many cool places over there. And, you know, I'm so like, I love when you go to different places because I'm so into like all the stuff on the West Coast, because you know, being on the East Coast over here, you know, I kind of know everything. I know it, and I've seen it all like 1,000 times. So, but on the West Coast, you know, it's like, oh, what is this place? I've never seen this.
So different. I know. We were talking about it. Yeah, South Florida has a lot of crazy haunts, and I'm game for it. I'm game to go over there and hunt.
Oh yeah, there's some crazy places. I'll take you. Listen, there's plenty of places. But so Tammie, tell everybody again where they could find you, your podcast, and of course, your Instagram page.
Of course, you could find us at Hollyweird Paranormal on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram, and at Twitter at HWP Podcast. And if you want to stalk us a little more, you can go on our website, which is hollyweirdparanormal.com, and you can listen to our podcast anywhere you get your podcast fix, which is Spotify, iHeartRadio, what else? Deezer, and even Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts.
Awesome. Tammie, listen, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I mean, I've been wanting to have you on here for so long, and this is actually the second take for those that don't know. We've actually done this before, and the audio got all screwed up, and it was all my fault, and I take complete blame for that. But it's a pleasure having you on here. We're going to definitely have to have you on again, and if the future holds correctly, we'll maybe doing some investigations together in the future. So
absolutely, 100%, I'm all for it, and thank you for having me.
All right, Tammie, thank you so much, and have a great night.
You too. Thank you so much, Will.
All right, have a good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed that interview with Miss Tammie M Chavez with Hollyweird Paranormal. Thank you so much again for coming on the podcast, and we really enjoyed it. Our conversation. You're going to have to definitely come back on again in the future to talk about all the other investigations that you've done in the past. So again, follow her at Hollyweird Paranormal on Instagram and follow all her stories. So Jay, before we say goodnight and tell everybody adieu, as they say, we like
is that what they say?
Adieu. Yes.
Yeah,
you like that, huh?
Leave it to them, William.
But we like to do a little segment called what to watch. And
what
Jay, what do you have this week for us for what to watch?
I have two things, actually. The first one, certainly the more mainstream, bigger one, the one I've been planning on all week and have been certainly binge watching, is The Winter Soldier and Falcon.
Oh, yes.
It's a Marvel Disney property.
Yeah.
And much like WandaVision, it is set up in more of a mini series.
Mm-hmm.
And it's definitely an offshoot of the main Marvel MCU. But they keep those mythos. They really do a good job of scaling it kind of down, and it seems like both are preparing for the next few movies to come out.
Right.
So they're really good. They're very entertaining, even though honestly, the Winter Soldier, Falcon.
Does he come off as like a little bitch? That's what I heard. I'm sorry to say it like that, but
he does spend part of it kind of pissing and moaning. If I'm honest, the amount of, I'm going to say this. Realize, friends, I know I'm white. Okay. And I know there's been a shit ton of oppression. And I want equality also. And I know there's systemic racism. Okay. That being said, man, do they hate white people. Man, do they hate white people. That whole show.
Yeah.
There's some things that are super duper blatant. Like,
right.
It is just right in your face.
Yeah.
And there are certain things that if I were to do it in exact inverse, I would be in a lot of trouble. But this isn't. And that's okay. I understand. And again, equality, I'm with it. I really swear to God I am. My best friend is Puerto Rican.
I can attest to you, Jay. I don't ever recall you saying anything racist. Yeah.
It's super duper obvious. And at some point, don't we at least say like, I mean.
Well, then again, Jay, you have to understand too, you have to go with what's popular right now. And what the mainstream media is pushing, right?
100%.
And what is the mainstream media pushing right now?
Yeah.
Right.
Anti-black and white. Yeah, I know.
It's definitely a divide of races, right? That's what they're pushing.
Racial casualness.
Anything that they can like push as far as a racial divide.
I honestly don't think it's quite as bad. I think the negative gets more press than the positive, unfortunately.
Of course it does. Of course it does.
And again, it's a great show, and they really do lean into it, which it does kind of fit their narrative.
Right.
I was just taken a bit back, but it really was entertaining. I still watched the whole thing. I watched the whole series.
Yeah.
I even went back and rewatched a couple to make sure I understood it.
Make sure you had a mental grab on it. Yeah.
Yeah. Instead of just sitting there. But anyways, great show. It's again setting up the next evolution of the MCU, which should be pretty entertaining to see.
Yes.
My other one, the one that is the dark horse, came out of nowhere, complete left field. There's a movie coming out, and I have yet to find out what platform it's coming on. I believe it's going to be Netflix. But you guys can go to YouTube and pull up the trailer for Tap Dance Man. I believe it's a British film, and the premise is it's a man who is losing his mind, but what he sees, the almost schizophrenic psychosis, the form it takes on, is this tap dance man, which is this over the top black and
entity,
white
right?
actor.
Yeah, like,
he does like he's got like that, you know how they would have the face paint,
right?
Where the mouth and the eyes were extra
like the jester,
white.
right?
So it's got that. So it's got the big white mouth that's painted on. It's black face,
right? Big
white mouth, big white eyes,
right?
And it'll over accentuate where his top hat speaks in that kind of time language,
right?
Super duper creepy.
I mean, that shit sounds creepy enough as it is, right there.
I'm not a horror movie guy. I think we got that
right. So, what about this movie intrigues you, Jay? Like,
I don't know. I think it's because
I know you not to be a horror movie guy at all.
I'm not. But
no, I know. Like, if you watch a horror movie, it's probably with me, and that's about it.
And it's totally against my. I was not my choice.
Right. It was not your choice. It was my choice.
Not my choice.
Right.
That's how that go. That has how it's always been, friends.
Right.
How it's always been.
Yeah.
And William knew I really was afraid of Nightmare on Elm Street, so that seemed to be the one we watched a lot. That and the Friday the 13th.
No, I kind of stayed away from it. Yeah.
No, you stayed away from the ones that really scared the piss out of me. Yeah. How many times do we see Freddy died? I mean, Christ.
Yeah. Exactly.
Anyway,
but yeah.
I think I like the ideology, a new spin on a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Yep. Yeah.
I like how they take the zeitgeist of what's happening on right now with the racial divide and
if you look at it that way, the symbolism, I could see that.
So it's prevalent, but not so in your face that it so I like the way that they're keeping it part of the story. They're
right.
keeping it's a part of the narrative,
right? But
it's not the overwhelming driving force of the narrative.
Yeah, I get it.
From what I saw, it was very tasteful. It seemed to be very intriguing. When you learn that the tap dance man is just a figment of this guy's imagination, I want to see how they play it out in the movie. I want to see how these interactions, kind of like a Fight Club.
Gotcha.
Where you didn't realize that Brad Pitt was imaginary until the very end. But with this, I get the feeling you're going to get part of that story throughout it.
Right.
But they'll show. I want to see how that happened and how he comes to that realization and
how they put it together, basically.
And right, I'm very curious. So it seems very intriguing. The Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde spin with some of the current things that are happening, and it just looks like a really neat movie. Yeah, listen, I mean, that sounds like a hell of a premise for a movie. I'm into like another twist of an old tale. I love that, by the way. When they ever could bring back an old tale and give it a completely different twist on it. I love. But yeah, that sounds like a fucking great premise. I'm looking forward to seeing that movie. One movie that I'll watch that one with you, but you'll have to watch Spiral with me. Spiral is a offshoot of the Saw franchise, and it has Chris Rock in it and Samuel Jackson, and it has to do with the guy from Saw, and it just, I don't know, it continues to series. I can watch Tap Dance Man completely on my own. I am almost a grown ass man.
Yeah, I get it. Remember the last horror movie we saw together? Do you remember that one?
The one we actually saw, or the one I slept through?
No. Okay. Not recently, but before that. Before we saw those fucking old movies. Do you remember what was the last one we saw?
I honestly don't.
I'll tell you right now, it was the fucking Blair Witch Project.
Oh my gosh, right.
You remember when we saw that? We saw it at the movie theater over there where the LA Fitness is over there.
Off Gateway.
Yeah. It's no
yes.
there. Now it's LA Fitness, but yeah, we saw.
Oh my God, yes. Holy shit,
we walked out
was that forever ago?
Yeah, remember we walked out of the movie, we were like, what the fuck?
What the fuck was that? No, I remember us both being like, I don't get it.
Yeah. But I was freaked out, and I was like, why was that dude just fucking staring at the wall?
Yeah, I remember walking away being like, that's fake. It's totally fake. Like, that's so fake. Like, I was waiting for the shit that everyone was telling me was super scary, and I was supposed to be super scared, and I'm a bit of a bitch. At no point in that movie was I ever scared.
It was a psychological scare in a way, because it was just like, what is going on?
I wasn't scared because I'm stupid.
No, I didn't say that. I'm just saying for me, it was a psychological scare. Like, because you didn't see anything. That's the greatest part about that movie. You never saw the protagonist. You know what I mean? You never saw
I did like how they did that. I like what I think they achieved what they were going for. Right. There was a definite sense of realism. That was, when reality shows were really hitting there.
That lost tape footage, found footage shit. Yeah. And think about it. It cost probably next to nothing to fucking make. I mean, what? You got 3 actors in the woods and fucking camera equipment. That's pretty much it. Right?
Sticks.
That was it.
A lot of sticks.
That's pretty much it. Right.
A lot of branches.
Yeah. A lot of branches. Yeah. But that was the last one that we saw before all of the last ones that we saw. That's crazy.
My God, you're right.
But listen, Jay, thanks for those recommendations for what to watch this weekend. We do appreciate all you guys sticking with us and listening on this week's episode of Dark Fringe Radio. Of course, you can listen to our website. At our podcast, at our website, at darkfringeradio.com. Go straight there, and you can make sure you can listen to all our latest episodes. You can go to all the streaming sites that are linked right there at the top as well, or scroll all the way down to the bottom. You can see our latest episode right there for your viewing or listening pleasure. So anything else for you tonight, Jay, before we say goodnight? No. Well, on that note, we thank you so much for joining us on another edition of Dark Fringe Radio. We'll see you guys again next week.
Thank you for listening to Dark Fringe Radio, recorded in Lapd Studios. Any correspondence can be sent to thedarkfringe@gmail.com. Thank you again for listening.